and change it. You have perspective, insight, and determination. Know what else? You're not alone. Remember those fun, smart friends you had in college? They're all out here too. And together, you can do even greater things. What better way to follow your path than with the people that started down it with you? There are over 150,000 of your fellow Cardinals across the country. That's a powerful network. So stay connected. Stay engaged. Stay in the game. Get connected through the Louisville Alumni Network and use your mind, skills, and talents to make the university, your community, and beyond a better place.
Right. So I get the privilege of introducing our moderator for the evening. Our moderator tonight is Daryl Griffith. He was a star basketball player at Louisville Male High School and at the University of Louisville. And he led the UofL men's basketball team to their first NCAA national championship in 1980. And he received the John Wooden Award as the nation's top player that year. After graduating, he went on to play 11 seasons with the Utah Jazz, scoring a career 12,391 points and having his number retired. Upon returning to Louisville, he has served in a variety of roles, including businessman, investor, community activist, and earlier this year, he returned to the University of Louisville as a university ambassador within Neely Bendaputi's office to help increase the profile of the school, expand relationships in support of the university's strategic plan, as well as advancing the school's cardinal anti-racism agenda. So without further ado, our moderator, Gerald Griffith.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here. I want to welcome all of you to our event tonight, Cardinal Nursing Serving Internationally. Tonight, we will get the opportunity to hear firsthand accounts from our alumni who, during the time at the University of Louisville, took part in the International Service Learning Program through the School of Nursing. We will also learn more about the program and what we as a community can do to promote these opportunities for Cardinal Nursing students in the future. Now you may be wondering why I'm moderating this event. As Caitlin stated, earlier this year, I came back to the University of Louisville to serve as a university ambassador. In this role, I get to share the great things our institution is doing for its students and our community. And as someone who is passionate about both our university and the lifting historically undeserved communities, this program speaks to both of these. Tonight, we will hear from Deans of Nursing School, Dr. Sonia Harding, who will discuss the importance of this program. Dr. Whitney Nash, who will lead the experience of our Cardinal Nursing students, and we will hear from three of the recent alumni, Joshua, Bethany, and Deja, who will share their experiences and how it has an impact on how they serve as professionals today. Without further ado, Ms. Harding.
Thank you so much for your introduction. I appreciate that greatly. I'm going to keep my remarks short tonight. I want everyone to know that this week actually marks the worldwide observance of International Education Week, which is an annual joint initiative between the U.S. Department of State and the U.S. Department of Education. This is actually a week whereby we recognize thousands of individuals across the globe that facilitate international educational exchange within many countries. As a nurse that has spent many summers abroad with undergraduate and graduate students, I cannot begin to tell you the impact going abroad has. One of the things I often did was I would place students in job shadowing experience to learn from the individuals actually delivering healthcare. I took students to Holland, Germany, and Belgium for many summers, and I thought I would just share with you some of the things that students learn. I had one student that I placed in an emergency room of a 650-bed hospital in the Netherlands, and she shadowed a nurse in the emergency room all day. She was just shocked that not one person came to the emergency room the entire day. Can you imagine? No one coming to your emergency room. Well, this happened in Holland because of socialized medicine. And in that country, every single citizen is assigned a primary care provider. It is this primary care provider's decision regarding whether or not someone is direct admitted to the hospital. Actually, the emergency room in Holland is for incidents that produce trauma. And so you rarely see individuals in the emergency room. Another example that I think made a huge impact with my students had to do with this 650 bed hospital having a 1% MRSA rate one summer, and then the next summer they had a 0% MRSA rate inside their hospital. Now, this was due to the procedures and protocols that they had in place. Some of the things that they did was they contained all their MRSA patients in one wing. They cultured the nurses weekly. Those nurses that were positive were sent home and treated. They were paid their salary while they were at home, and then they were recultured before being allowed to return to their unit. And this really contained MRSA in Holland. You know, being in another country and seeing firsthand the differences in healthcare system truly provides students with the opportunity to expand their thinking and to consider alternate ways of managing healthcare. I'm excited for you to hear the speakers tonight as they discuss their experiences. And I'd like to thank the School of Nursing Alumni Council for making this event possible, as well as the University of Louisville Health for financially supporting this event. They realize that having a greater sense of the interdependence of the global community is a critical part of higher education, especially in the age of COVID-19. Shaping the outlook of the next generation who will lead the world in enhanced international travel, students that travel abroad share the rich perspective of culture, language, and healthcare models. As you know, the pandemic impacted international exchange and student mobility around the world. We continue to prioritize the safety of our students that travel both domestically and internationally, and we are slowly restarting our study abroad programs this spring, and you'll hear more about that. Now, back to you, Daryl.
Thank you, Dean Harden. Next, we will hear from Mark Spivak. Mark Spivak.
Sorry.
Mark is a two-time graduate from the University School of Nursing program in 2000 and again in 2013 with his master's. Initially, he began his career at the University of Louisville Hospital in the inpatient psychiatric department and later transitioned into the emergency department. Through the years, his work has allowed him to serve and coordinate the care of underserved communities through outreach programs. He currently serves as a clinical manager of the emergency department for the UofL Health Jewish Hospital and is joining us tonight as a representative for our sponsor, UofL Health. Mark?
Well, thank you so much for the kind introduction, and thank you all for letting me speak on such an important topic tonight. I graduated my first degree at UofL in year 2000, and I started my career. And one of the things that I learned early in that career is, or in my career, is that illness has no boundaries. It has no concern of your sex, your race, or your culture. And so I've had the opportunity to meet people from all kinds of places in the world. And it's given me a wonderful opportunity to appreciate how their cultures are and how they want to be cared for and how they respond to healing hands. And so I think it's just very, very important now, especially in the times of COVID, as Dean Harden said, there are nursing shortages in these times. We've seen a lot of travel nurses. And so in order to offset some of our losses locally, we will be bringing in international nurses to help us kind of bridge the gap, so to speak. And I think that's why this is so important. Number one, for the Cardinal nurses that are going to be coming out of school soon, they get to go on these trips and they get to work in those environments with those different cultures. And then when they come back home and they graduate and come to the workforce, they'll get to help those patients when they run into those cultures, but they'll also help bridge the divide between the local nursing population and those that are coming from abroad. So I think this program is just amazing in its opportunities for both getting everybody to feel more comfortable when they go to the hospitals, making everybody feel more comfortable from the patient side if they need, or from the employee side, as I spoke about the international nurses. So I just can't think of a better time for us to have this program. I think it'll prepare the nurses coming out of school to be able to deal with these various cultures that we see. Just to give you an example, in just our ER, not only do we have an interpreter for people who have either no English proficiency or limited, and we have somebody 9 to 5, 5 days a week to help interpret for them. But in addition to that, the rest of the time is bridged with iPhones throughout the building, or iPads, I should say. So in today's time, I think it's important to understand that culture is a very significant part of what the patients expect us to understand about them. They expect for us to be nurturing to them, to understand where they're coming from in their time of need. So I just can't say how important of a project.
To actually study abroad, I was able to, in my PhD program, go to Belize and ended up doing my PhD dissertation work in Belize. And there I saw firsthand how important it was to offer these types of experiences. And I couldn't wait to progress in my career and be able to help facilitate those opportunities for other students. So I have a lot to thank the University of Louisville for in that respect. And I want to touch on a couple of things that Dean Harden said and that Mark also touched on. And that is just the incredible opportunity when students travel abroad to see different healthcare perspectives, to see how healthcare is delivered in low resource areas, but also in areas where there's a different health system or a different structure. And we have had a chance to see and take students to both of those types of areas to really see what a nationalized health system is like. And it very much helps students understand that, yes, we are very blessed in the United States, but we don't have all the answers, and that answers can be found in areas all over the world. So these programs have really given students the opportunity to do that. And also to Mark's point, as far as having nurses come from abroad to our community, I think it is a wonderful opportunity for these students to have international experiences, and then they can translate that experience to their day-to-day work, working alongside nurses from other countries and other cultures. And we can learn a lot from those nurses. So I think those are both some really great points. And as far as the International Service Learning Program and some of the other international opportunities that the School of Nursing provides, you know, it's just, what we're really trying to do is create global citizens and create nurses and facilitate their ability to become servant leaders. And, you know, a lot of these programs are short-term programs that students participate in for a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, some are semester long. And, you know, we know, and I think when you hear from their students, you'll get a better understanding of this, but that they get so much more from these programs than really what we're able to deliver as far as care and education to the areas that we travel to. So what I'd like to do is we have 3 students who have traveled with the School of Nursing to a variety of programs. And we're going to give them an opportunity to share a little bit about what they've been doing or in their career now, and then how the experiences have impacted, you know, their professional development. So we're going to start with Beth Payne. And Beth graduated from the University of Louisville in the spring of 2020 and began working at UofL Hospital in their emergency department. And during her time at the School of Nursing, she traveled to Ghana with the International Service Learning Program in 2019. And the trip to Ghana included health literacy and human physiology teaching at a school for elementary and high school students, as well as a lot of other fun activities, such as playing soccer with the kids, dancing, and just general interaction and getting to know the kids on a little more personal basis. As a student, Beth was the recipient of the Dean's Highest Scholarship Award and the Faculty Award for Professional Nursing. Beth now continues her work in the University of Louisville Emergency Department and Louisville's Trauma and Stroke Center, and is looking forward to more international medical trips in the future. And we're certainly hope that Beth is able to do that. So Beth, our first question for you is, can you tell our viewers how participating in the ISLP Ghana program has impacted how you care for your patients now?
Yeah, I mean, I think first I would say I can point to a few moments in my nursing career or as a student that were very impactful for me. And the ISLP trip was high on the list, maybe the top of the list, just because of the opportunity to interact with other nursing students in an environment where we were all learning together. It was something we had never done before. We were experiencing other cultures, but then also getting to kind of put our skills or things that we had learned into practice and realize how much we had learned in school, which was pretty cool. So I would say, in answer to your question, I think the number one thing that it did for me is grew my confidence in interacting with people of different languages, different cultures, different life experiences and backgrounds. You know, some of the kids spoke a little bit of English, but not very much. Some of them had completely different life experience than me. They were very poor. Some of them, you know, the meals that they got at school, that was the only hot meal that they got. Some of them came from like barely any health literacy, any health background. They didn't know what we were talking about at all. Some of them, actually a good number, I taught in the high school class, and a lot of them wanted to be nurses because they saw that as such a great profession. And so it was really fun to see and experience that. And I feel like coming home, especially working at UofL in the emergency department, we get people of so many different cultures. People speak different languages all the time. I would say, I didn't know about some of the languages that exist in the world until I started working at UofL. And so getting to kind of just get more comfortable with hearing about different cultures, experiencing different cultures, and kind of loving that I could interact with them and experience them in a new way that I hadn't before. And then I think the other thing it really helped me with nursing, or education is such a big part of nursing. You do so much patient education, whether you're kind of explaining procedures to patients or explaining what's going on in their body or explaining what the doctor just said or any number of things. And so I think the teaching experience that we got there, having to kind of break these big concepts down into very understandable, even on an elementary level, bite-sized pieces for the kids to understand, really helped me then walking into the emergency room to kind of know how to do that. So a doctor comes in and gives this very, very long explanation of what's going on. And then I'm the next person in the room and I'm trying to break it down for them and explain it on a more understandable level. So that was super helpful for me. I think just grew my ability to do that and got some good practice doing that while I was in Ghana. So those would be a couple things, I think.
Great. Well, you kind of touched on my second question, which is fine. And I should say that Bethany was in our first cohort of students that went to Ghana. And that group of students really sort of blazed the trail there. And we're just, I think you would find that the group of students that want to travel to these kind of distant locales are generally very proficient critical thinkers, and we get to see that in action, which is just a wonderful side benefit. So thank you for that response. One quick thing I did want to ask you is, how were you prepared to travel to Ghana?
I think ISLP as a program and both our nursing side of it, but then also just the program in general, did a great job of preparing us. We did a semester we had a class that was basically for ISLP. So I think at the beginning we met maybe once a month or something like that. And then the closer we got to the trip, we met more and more frequently. So I think leading up, we met once a week, and then that week of almost every day we were down there talking. And so they did everything from, prepared us for the culture, kind of what Ghana is going to be like, the kind of history of Ghana, what the different kind of people interactions we would have, what to expect in terms of greetings and conversation and what they might want to talk about, and everything from that to what should we wear and what's appropriate and what's not. And but then also just the international experience. This is going to be a culture you've never experienced before. Some of us had never traveled. I had, but some people had never even traveled out of Kentucky before. So this was a big experience for them, getting to get out of the country and So I think that was really significant, learning about, just how to be prepared for things that are going to be very different than you've ever seen before, and food that you're not going to know what to do with. And so they did a great job of all of those things. But then I think in terms of the teaching experience, the service part of the service learning program, Dr. Nash and Kayla Brooks, the program director, they all did a great job of helping us kind of really perfect our teaching units, so that we knew exactly, at least we had a plan going in. Doesn't necessarily mean it always went according to plan, but we knew what we wanted to teach, and we knew we had some great creative ideas. We did a lot of brainstorming and just kind of roundtables where we'd throw out ideas and people would say, why don't we try this, or what if we did that? And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of just kind of trying different things and seeing what might stick with the kids and what wouldn't work. But I think that was a big part of it too, just feeling like we could go in and feel prepared and feel like we knew what we were going to try to, the goals that we were going to try to accomplish while we were there, and what we wanted to leave the kids with. So that was really helpful. I felt like all of us went in feeling like, okay, we know what we're trying to do here. So that was great.
Great. Well, Bethany, thank you. And I will say that one of the really interesting aspects of the program is what sort of happens outside of the classroom, and the evening debriefing, really kind of going back and troubleshooting, fine-tuning what we're doing in the classroom, but also really discussing how things went really beyond the classroom. Were there interactions that you were uncomfortable with or that went great? And sort of looking at those sort of aha moments and where things have come together. And I think most of our students would agree that that part is probably as impactful as anything that they do in the classroom. So thanks so much, Bethany. We're going to move on. And Joshua, you're up next. You're off the hook there, Beth. Joshua Schaus graduated from the University of Louisville's Master's Entry into Professional Nursing program in 2017. And this is one of our unique programs that takes students who already have a degree in another area and quickly prepares them to become a registered nurse. And they come out with a master's degree and then also are ready to set for the NCLEX. So, and helps them become quickly prepared for leadership roles. So during his time at UofL, he took advantage of the international programming that we had in Haiti in 2016. And since graduating, he has exclusively worked in the pediatric emergency setting. In the winter months, he spends his off time as a ski patroller. And to satiate his passion for outdoor activities and sports, as well as medicine. Joshua also will begin travel nursing in January of 2022. So welcome, Joshua. It's good to have you. What led you to choose to participate in a service trip to Haiti?
So the biggest thing was that travel is such a big impact on my life, and so it's the travel nursing gig. But a lot of so as you said, our class was a pretty small class of around 12 people. I think over half the class was going, and so it was like at this point we had over a year of getting to know each other, and it just seemed like it would be a fun trip to be able to go.
Josh, we're having a little hard time hearing you. If you could maybe turn up your volume just a bit or set a little closer to your mic.
Okay. Sorry, is this any better? Okay. So the trip, mostly the adventure aspect. We had Haiti was the one that was offered to us, which they had told us would be a lot more exciting and like less of a, it's not quite as nice in some of the areas as some of the other international trips. So they definitely was like, this is going to be one where you should be prepared for adventure, which that's what I was all about. So the idea of being able to see what healthcare was like in another country was super appealing. As we're very well accustomed to being able to almost throw a rock at any hospital here, whereas out there it's not quite the case, as we definitely found out once we got out there. And so just over the overall adventure, you know, the camaraderie amongst the students is super cool, and your fellow classmates, and being able to work alongside some professors as well was just like, it was a really cool experience.
If you could maybe give us an example of something that surprised you during your time in Haiti.
Sure. So I wrote down several, and I tried to sort them out because the entire experience was surprising. Like to think that I'm not sure how, I did not know, I wasn't quite prepared for how Haiti functions as a country, but they are a very much second-ish third world, almost like a third world country, in the sense of the utter lack of resources. So we flew in and was immediately took a 2-hour drive out to the compound where we would then be staying for the next week in these 4-wheel drive vehicles, because the roads are only established within the Port-au-Prince city, and then you get right outside the city and it's dirt roads, and we had to change our tire on one of the trips going to one of the facilities. That was just awesome. I mean, like, again, this is like all the stuff that I was really enjoying, but the surprise really came with just the lack of resources entirely. I don't mean to get too graphic or whatnot, but like when we would see patients, which we would see so many patients, that was so surprising. I mean, hundreds a day. We would outfit these little facilities, and sometimes you work in schools, and you know, when I say school, I mean almost like a barn that was, you know, kids was dirt floors and things like that. But we had hundreds of people from the community that would come see us, and when we would see patients that needed to be transported, we had all these people from the community on little mopeds that we would pay them to send them into the Port-au-Prince hospital, which was in the main, you know, city. And I mean, again, just like nothing can prepare you or could have prepared me for like what we saw out there and what we experienced overall. From like the rewarding part of this, I mean, the people were just so grateful, and so like you would have thought that you were like giving them $1 million based off of you just giving them, you know, a few months blood pressure supply of medicine, just because you just don't see this stuff. And I mean, it is truly the entire experience was surprising. It's really difficult to give like any certain things. You had to be so creative. We came into so many instances where things were supposed to go this way, but absolutely did not. And like I said, we were changing car tires on the ways to these compounds. We were, you know, there's no air conditioning. There's mosquito nets that you're having to use, and the fear of all these other things. I mean, like, it was so awesome. I mean, I don't mean like.
So would you say, Joshua, that they, the folks that you encountered had the ability to really adapt and utilize those critical thinking skills that we try to teach in nursing school to really just get by on a day-to-day basis?
Absolutely. I mean, like they have no other option. Like
right.
Else they can do. So I mean, from the resourcefulness standpoint, like they're probably some of the most resourceful people I'll ever meet, and to them, it's okay, like that, because that's what they know. That's their life. And
right.
See that from my standpoint is so humbling, and it's like, and that's something. I know the question of, you know, how did that affect, you know, my overall nursing point of view, and that's what it was. Is just that humbled me to a level that like still, even to this day, you know, 4 years, 5 years later, it's still just like I'll think back to those things and those experiences and the people, and it was unlike, I've still never, like I said, I travel a ton, and I've never experienced anything.
Well, let me ask you real quick. You know, if you had to tell students that are considering traveling abroad in service to the community, what would you tell them? What recommendations would you give them?
I would absolutely tell them to take advantage of that, because especially if it's something that you can manage to do at this time of your life, you never know what can happen later in life. You should take advantage of this opportunity. think the opportunity to immerse yourself within a completely different culture is unparalleled. Like, I mean, it's just truly mind-bending, eye-opening stuff that people see. And I think from the standpoint of like, it's not just like, how is this going to change, you as a nurse, but it's like, it'll probably change your life in so many other disciplines.
Well, I think that kind of goes back to what we were talking about as far as preparing you to be a global citizen, not just for the experience that you had then in country, but how it does impact you, on the personal level. So in essence, for time, we're going to move on to our next person. But what I did want to say to the folks here, Joshua participated in our Haiti program, which if any of you all follow international affairs and the news, you know that Haiti has really suffered recently. Well, historically has suffered, but in the most recent history, they are essentially considered a failed state. And there's been some really significant human rights issues there. And we have chosen not to, at this point, return to Haiti. And we have transitioned to Puerto Rico for our more short-term, very service-focused programming. So that's a nice transition to talk to our final student, Deja Price. And so Deja is a 2020 graduate, and in March of 2019, she was a member of our International Service Learning Program in Belize. In October that same year, she accompanied us to Puerto Rico. And upon completion of her nursing curriculum, she was awarded the President's Outstanding Graduate Award. And she now works at UofL Health Jewish Hospital in the cardiac and medical ICUs. And these units within the hospital have been designated as the COVID ICUs in response to the community surges that we have seen. So welcome, Deja. It's good to see your smiling face again. So you participated in 2 different programs. And what were the challenges for you to be able to do this? I mean, that was in 1 calendar year. That's a lot of travel, a lot of expense.
Yes. So I knew in high school that I wanted to study abroad and didn't have the opportunity then. And then when I came to nursing school, just being in nursing school, there wasn't the opportunity necessarily to study abroad without pushing my graduation date back. And with my course load, I just couldn't take, the extremely long trips, but I was extremely, happy to hear that Islp existed. But it was still challenging to enroll in it for a couple of reasons. I am was a Woodford Porter Scholar, which means that I was awarded full tuition and a stipend to help with room and board. So with, the full tuition and several $1,000s awarded to me every year, I still had out-of-pocket expenses with fees and, textbooks and meal plans and parking passes and all those kind of things. And I had little to no financial support, like outside of what I was able to bring in myself. Like I didn't have money from family, and I was really trying not to take out student loans since I had that scholarship. Luckily, I live in Kentucky, went to high school in Kentucky, so I had KEYS money, which is a program that awards you some scholarship funding based on what your GPA was in high school. So with KEYS money and working 2 to 5 jobs at a time while in nursing school, I was able to take these trips. And I don't think that I would have taken a second trip if the first trip did not impact me as much as it did. So I, did everything that I could to scramble together the funds to go again. And there was a small amount of funding that was available at the school, but I was told, it's a very small amount. It's definitely not enough to cover the entire trip. And I personally was not selected to receive that funding. So like I said, I didn't have the financial support at home, which made it challenging. But and like I said, the only reason why I was able to take that trip was because I had full tuition, I had a stipend through that scholarship, and had additional scholarship money coming in from KEYS. So if it were not for just those blessings, really, that I was able to have that support in school, I definitely would not have been able to participate in the program because I just, but the trips are all inclusive. They're from the ones that I took were like 7 to 10 days. And, there's flights involved, multiple flights involved. So it can be upwards of $1,000. And just, I was able to make it happen. But it took a lot of work to be able to afford it.
So certainly students who are not in the position that you are in, as far as having some of that other support to take care of your tuition and fees and such, would even be at a more of a disadvantage, I guess you would say, to be able to participate in these kinds of programs. So there's certainly costs involved for the programs, but there's also those other associated costs that, things like your passport and those types of immunizations, those types of things that do kind of add up. So it's often said that when you participate in these types of programs, you get more than you give. And what do you feel was the most important thing that you gained from your participation?
Well, that's a really hard question to answer. What's the most important? Because there was so much that I took away from it. If the most important thing, the thing I think carried over home more than anything was just a passion for service. I had not really served much prior to this trip, like some small things like Ronald McDonald House and Louisville and that kind of thing. But I had never even been on a plane before I flew to Belize.
Right.
It was.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was my first flight flying out of the country. That was interesting. But whenever I came home, that passion came with me. So I have continued to serve here through my church, through Habitat Humanities, through Southern Louisville Community Ministries and stuff like that. I learned about myself that was something that I was passionate about. That's something that I wanted to continue to do. I knew when I chose nursing that I wanted to do something that made a difference in people's lives, and service is just another opportunity for me to do that. And I would love to also continue that through professionally. There's a lot of things like IBHQ, Nursing Without Borders, RAM, and things like that that I am definitely interested in, that I don't think that I would have known or even really explored that if it were not for Islp, if it were not for going to Belize and going to Puerto Rico and just realizing that was something that I just love to do. And you had mentioned, I think Bethany mentioned the education portion. I love education, and I didn't know that until I went to Belize and was teaching these kids in the schools. And
You mean even after having to deal with all those kids, you still love doing that?
Oh yeah. Like you said, those evening debriefings, you learn how to manage rowdy kids over a few days. But I brought that home, and it's changed where I want to direct my career. Like, I want to continue that education here. That's one of my favorite parts of my job, whenever I get to teach patients, about what's going on inside, what their options are, just explaining the medical jargon. And I think learning how to teach children definitely makes it easier to teach adults, because if you have no baseline knowledge in the topic, then it's not really that different. So there was so much. It was extremely humbling. I realized how fortunate I am, but also learned things that I was like, we need to do things more like that at home, and just learned. It was so interesting to learn like the differences in that I thought was normal that wasn't normal there, or they thought was normal that I wasn't, which I realized that's just culture. But it was just amazing. There were so many things I learned, but I would say that the top two things I took away was a passion for service and education.
Wonderful. Well, my final question is, what do you think the barriers are for students in participating in international service learning programs, and particularly in light of the environment that we're in as far as the pandemic?
So from my experience, the biggest challenge was funding and having the opportunity, because if you don't realize that there's an opportunity if you don't realize that if there's no funding there. That was the biggest barrier for me. I also think that like awareness that this is an opportunity for people I'm glad that we're doing this meeting right now, because that's just getting the word out there that this is an opportunity for people. And honestly, things are, I do not envy all of the classes after mine because
Yeah.
I finished before UofL shut down. So my capstone clinical 2 days before. So I know that there is a multitude of challenges that come with trying to just operate in a pandemic. But that being said, we as a nation have been able to respond to COVID in ways that other countries may not have the opportunity to respond. So even when, you know, COVID's over, which I think everyone here can know that it's never going to really be over, but whenever, you know, numbers are down, we're not calling it a pandemic anymore. Here, there's going to be a lot of cleanup that still needs to be done in a lot of these countries, ours included, but you know, we have some resources that they don't. So that being said, like the need has definitely grown since I was there. Just the effects of a pandemic and what it's done. We've all seen it here, and I can only imagine a place that doesn't have the resources that we have. So you know, funding is a big deal. People can't go and help if they don't have the money and they don't realize there's an opportunity there if
Right.
you know, they don't have funding. So I think awareness and funding is really the biggest barriers at this time.
And it's really been a pleasure to see Deja's growth. I got to see her go on her first trip, her first plane ride, and then see her come back in October and really assume a leadership role. It's something that not a lot of students get the opportunity to do, to participate in 2 programs. So we're going to wrap that portion up quick, and we may have time for just a couple of questions. I think Dr. Hayden is monitoring the chat. Caitlin, I don't know where we are as far as time. If we have time for a couple questions or sort of where we are.
We do. We have a minute if anybody has any. It looks like we do have a question. Is there a deadline to apply for the Belize trip?
So we generally do have deadlines, but this is, of course, this is COVID time, right? And so we just actually made the decision to go about less than 30 days ago. And normally we know coming in August that we're going to go. So there is quite a bit of flexibility there. And I would encourage anyone who's interested, if you go to the louisville.edu, which any of the students should know what that website is, and you do /ISLP, and then look on Belize, you will have the link to the application there. And then of course I can be found in the email, and you can email me for any questions that you might have. Well, I want to thank all the students. This has taken time out of, I know, what is their very, very busy schedule. Fall is crazy for everyone. Every day is crazy for everyone. So I just really appreciate your candid answers and your continued support for the ISLP program and our international programming in general. So I'll turn it back over to you, Caitlin.
And I actually am going to turn it over to Dean Harden because she is going to speak just for a moment.
Well, I would really like to thank everyone for attending tonight, especially our students who were so willing to share their experience with us. You know, Whitney Nash has just been a true leader in the field of international travel for nursing. I think that anyone who has questions about international travel should seek her out as a consultant because she's got many years of experience. I'd also like to especially thank Daryl Griffith, who truly understands that it takes a team to be successful. And, you know, that's really what it takes when you're going abroad. It takes a team of individuals to help these students be successful and to make sure all the pieces are in place for them, not only financially, but also all the details that it takes to get them abroad. I hope that you can join us by financially supporting our travel fund that has been established. This fund will help ensure our next generation of nurses travel abroad to experience the world. Again, I thank all of you for joining me tonight, and I'll hand it back over to Daryl.
Thank you, Dean. I appreciate that. In closing, do we have any other comments or information that any of our panelists tonight would like to share?
I would like to address the people that are potentially interested on this call for going on these trips, just to highly encourage you to take up that opportunity. I remember prior to going for the trip, having a patient that didn't speak English and being so anxious and overwhelmed and just like not knowing how to address it. And I came back with a different mindset. First of all, just culturally sensitive care and realizing that not everybody is going to be comfortable speaking to you, period. Sometimes people aren't going to want to wear shoes. Sometimes people aren't going to want to eat that or whatever. It teaches you so much about yourself, but also how to take better care of other people. And it grows your confidence. Like Bethany mentioned, you're there doing something that you may have only done in a clinical setting or with a dummy. So being there and being able to get that hands-on experience prior to entering your nursing career, especially with a totally different culture, sometimes being the only person that speaks your language in the room, it's an experience that is very unique. And like Joshua mentioned, this may be the only opportunity that you have. Life gets busy. And if you have the means to do it, I'm very grateful that they're starting a fund so that more people are going to have the opportunity. But spread the word to your friends, to the other students, that this is something that they can participate in, and just consider it for yourself too, because it really is like a life-changing experience.
Deja, are you gunning for my job?
But you know, you gotta retire sometime.
That's true.
Is that it, Deja?
Yeah, that was it. If anybody else has any
Anybody else like to join in and follow that up? Well, thank you again to everyone for joining us. We hope you enjoyed tonight's event, and we look forward to seeing you at another engagement opportunity soon. Go Cards.
Thank you. Good job, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.